So what are some of the skills you have gained so far from the debate?
Sorry, some of the what?
Some of the skills.
Some of the skills. Okay, so back in the days, I wasn't this good, like in terms of speaking, actually even making connections, even whatever. But now, when you see like back in the days up to now, things are they're good. Public speaking okay, and then not only that, I was able to get a job from this. Not only that, I was able to have a lot of friends because of talking. So it's one of the best. Thank you. So to you guys.
I think Sandrine now introduce herself.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Okay, so thank you. My names are Umubye Sandrine and I am 19 years of age and I am a high school graduate from Star School. I graduated in history, economics, and literature. And yeah, I am happy to be debating with you guys, and I hope it's going to be a good debate. So a quick startup for to know me better is I am the middle child in a family of 5, and I am passionate about reading, poetry, and debating. And currently, I am like sort of trying to figure out what major I am going to take in university. But at the same time, I am trying to not be idle, and that is why I work with iDebate, volunteering and engaging in debates such as this, so that I can just be active and not be idle. One thing I love about my country is that it is so welcoming. Like the people here are welcoming. Like you could even be lost and people would help you to get to where you are going. So people are very much welcoming. And another thing is that I really like I am from, my hometown is called Gisenyi, and the place is so calming because we also have a lake, Lake Kivu. And whenever I just feel stressed, I like to go there and just, try to think, write some poetry and, do stuff. And yeah, so that is basically my introduction. If you have anything to say, just let me know. Thank you.
If there are no questions for Sandrine, we can have Andy and Nicholas introduce themselves as well.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Uwase Andromede. I go by Andy. I am a senior at University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and I am excited to be here today. I did join debate 2 years ago, and it's been one of the amazing experience that I have had here at University of Nebraska. And also one thing that I love about this school is also the people, and also the food here is amazing. So yeah, if you have any other question, just let me know.
Your name though was it rings a bell when it comes to here. So how?
Oh, yes, I am from Rwanda. Yeah, I am an international student at University of Nebraska. Yes.
So you say that the food there is perfect, and you miss the food here? If yes, like
I
what
do
kind
miss food there. Yes, I do miss food there, but yeah, food here are good as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick Wallenberg. I'm a junior accounting student here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I've been doing debate this is my 6th year now. I did it in high school. I do it in college now. And I'm really excited to be a part of this global debate. I want to thank you all for inviting us to be a part of this global debate series. I think it's really important that we have kind of continued deliberation and debate for those who come from different walks of life, different areas of the world, especially when it seems like all of the political structures are so polarized and we can't have good deliberative debate. So I'm really excited to do that with y'all. A little bit about me. I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, which is 3 hours south of Lincoln, where we're at right now. And the thing that I just like about the Midwest and Lincoln, Nebraska specifically, is the community feel that comes along with living here. It's kind of a big city, but it feels like a small town all at the same time, which is just very welcoming and very much a place for good community. And you can't beat watching Nebraska football or having chili and cinnamon rolls in the winter. And yeah, if y'all have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Have you been in Africa, or are you interested in, like, in future something?
I have not been out of the country hardly at all, actually. But I'm really interested in traveling the world, and I look to do that sometime in the future. But I don't have any hard and fast plans yet.
Please put one on your calendar, right? What's I can tell a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I was saying put one on your calendar when it comes to traveling. Maybe I can help you with that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure.
How does she treat you? Good? By that I mean how is she with you?
Oh no, it's great. It's awesome being partners with Andy, and it's been awesome kind of preparing this debate so that we get to work together a little closer on making arguments and like learning more about each other, which has been a lot of fun.
Okay, I guess we can get started with the debate. So every speaker is gonna have 6 minutes for their speech, and then we're gonna have 2 minutes for the cross-examination, and then 3 minutes for the reply speech. Does that make sense for everyone? Okay, I guess we can get started by the first speaker from the proposition side. Thank you.
Thank you all. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so thank you. Today's motion is this House would make foreign aid contingent on human rights record. As a affirmative case, from the beginning, we would like to clarify the boundaries of this debate. First, we're not debating about the merits of foreign aid nor the history of foreign aid. And then second, we all agree that foreign aid is not ideal for any country nor any society. No one should be subject to the mercy of a more powerful society. However, in a world where foreign aid is a reality, the debate of today is asking us if we should make that aid conditional on a government human rights record, and our answer, the affirmative team, is a big yes. We would like to begin by providing definitions for the keywords. First, foreign aid. This refers to the international movement of money, services, or goods from governments or international institutions for the benefit of a receiving country or its citizen. Foreign aid can be fiscal, or military or humanitarian. But today's debate, we're going to focus on the fiscal and military aid. Second, human rights records can be described as moral norms or moral standards, which are understood as inalienable fundamental rights of every human person. Human rights encompass a wide variety of rights, which were all described in the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Some include Article 3, which is right to life, liberty, personal security. Article 2, which is freedom from discrimination. Article 20, which is right of peaceful assembly and association. So how are human rights record measured? The following NGOs provide information on the human rights records of individual country governments. The first is Amnesty International, which is a worldwide movement of people who campaign for internationally recognized human rights. The second is the Human Rights Watch, which is a human rights organization made up of lawyers, journalists, academics, and country experts who investigate and expose human rights violations in order to hold abusers accountable. So what is the status quo? For every $1 of aid from rich to poor countries, between $7 and $10 returned to rich countries in form of debt repayment, interest trade, private sector transformation, or capital flight. According to UN Conference for Trade and Development, reveals that the net transfer of wealth is 200,000 billion per year from poor countries to the rich countries. So our first argument is that foreign aid is a tool that breaks the social contract between the leaders and their citizens in poor countries. Leaders who receive foreign aid change their attitude towards citizens because they do not have to rely on their tax money for survival. In all countries, leaders have to create a tax system that works in order to receive funding through the form of taxes from the population. But when they have access to free money, they're not forced to be effective. This means that the accountability and oversight that citizens normally provide for the government is lost. And then a second argument is that foreign aid props up and helps dictators as well as political parties that do not respect human rights remain in power. According to U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID 2020 data, the top 5 recipients of American aid obligations for 2019 were Afghanistan, rating for $4.9 billion US dollars, Israel, which was $3.3 billion US dollars, Jordan, $1.7 billion US dollars, and Egypt, $1.5 US dollars. So in Afghanistan, which was the first recipient of a lot of money in 2019 of aid, it states that according to the Human Rights Watch Report 2022, the United Nations reported that Taliban forces were responsible for nearly 40% of civilian deaths and injuries in the first 6 months of 2021. Although many incidents were unclaimed, women and children compromised nearly half of all civilians' casualties. In the weeks after the Taliban takeover, Taliban authorities announced a steady team of policies and regulation rolling back women's and girls' rights. This included measures severely curtailing access to employment and education and restricting the right to peaceful assembly. This is also true historically when you look at leaders such as Mobutu in Congo, who remained in power for more than 20 years because they were receiving free money from the West. As an affirmative, we believe that if we make aid, condition, and human rights record, we will be twisting the hands of the leaders that are abusing their own population and forcing them to make reforms that would result in the upholding of human rights. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. We're gonna have the cross-ex for 2 minutes.
All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to ask you a question about your first major argument about the social contract. What is the affirmative stance on citizens that are not able to pay their taxes because they don't have any revenue streams or any ways to make money?
Sorry?
So the first argument that the affirmative makes is that that foreign aid prevents the reliance on taxes for the survival of nation. How does that argument interact with the fact that certain forms, like certain people cannot pay taxes or don't make money to pay taxes to prop up governments?
Thank you. As I said before, if we agree to just give them the money because the citizens cannot pay a certain amount of taxes, we're not saying that the citizens should actually pay all the taxes. We're saying that if the government agree to respect the human rights, then they can get the necessary aid that they want.
All right. And then I have a question about your second argument about foreign aid propping up poor regimes. I guess, when have we seen it historically that foreign aid being withheld has changed the way that these regimes act?
Sorry?
In the past, when we have withheld foreign aid because of human rights conditions, when have we seen those nations change their behavior?
Thank you. mostly when they take away the aid, it's mostly that they take part of it. They just don't take away all the aid. So this leaves a very big loophole, because they say, okay, USA is withdrawing the aid, but then we still have China, we still have USSR, or even other countries. So with this, the proposition side, we are saying that they should withhold all the other aid, including those for other things, but we are not saying that they should like withhold the aid for the humanitarian things, but then all the other aids, if they do not if they're not able to actually like have human rights records, then those aid will be withheld.
All right, thank you very much for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. So now we're gonna have the first speaker from the opposition side.
Can you hear me very well? Okay. Okay, first, I would like to thank our friends from the proposition for their speech. So, however, we cannot imagine how you can uphold human rights. So in the world where some dignity is denied, and so we stand opposed the motion that foreign aid should be contingent on human rights record. We believe that for the purpose of the debate, we should refer to foreign aid as in form of economy, military, or emergency humanitarian, especially during natural disasters. We will oppose this motion on two grounds: the ethical and the material. So to begin, we are making the ethical and principled case for the foreign aid. The proposition seems to have forgotten that treating people with dignity is what makes democracy work. Recognizing that people are not means to an end in foundational principle of human rights. It is critical to maintaining the ground of rule of law itself. So as United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, whereas recognition of inherent dignity and of the equal inalienable rights of all members of human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And also the General Assembly proclaims that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. So they would have you believe that punishing the child will cure the sins of the parents and produce a better world for everyone. It is our argument that not only does this fail in practice, but it also violates the principle of dignity and worth and make it harder to develop a peaceful and just world. The proposition would abandon people to repressive government based on few bad actors. They argue that we should take action that undermine democracy, in their case erodes the global human rights order itself. Also, as John Kennedy, the former president of the United States, stated, there is no escaping our obligations. Our moral obligation as a wise leader and good neighbor in the interdependent community of free nations, and a program of assistance must continue because the cause of political freedom requires it. But also, again, foreign policy cannot be grounded in principle alone. And we believe that practical case for foreign aid remains strong. We have three reasons for this. The first one, democracy is backsliding. According to the Freedom House, the world is moving away from democracy because of COVID-19 and right-wing takeovers. More than 2/3 of the world's population live in eroding democracies. The second one, foreign aid is more than just money. Western states provide military and governing expertise, training programs, grants, goods, and direct budgetary support. These increase points of contact for culture and political influence. Cultural exchange, the development of connection are all possible because of foreign aid. So the proposition would have this House eliminate 51 billion in aid to countries like Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and South Sudan. So our third reason is that shunning does not work. Look at the history. In Libya, North Korea, Zimbabwe, and Iraq, getting rid of foreign aid only make regimes stronger and increase harms done to the people. So time and time again in history, leaders around the world have argued against providing aid to the people living under repression with horrific results. So how can our friends from the proposition honestly saying that denying a child in South Sudan food, medicine, or drinking water and educational opportunity will change the behaviors of their leaders? And how does starving people now restore a sense of justice or dignity of those who died in past famine? Also, or did sanctioning Saddam Hussein make the Ba'ath Party less fascist or totalitarian? And did starving people of North Korea eliminate their nuclear program? So are we really comfortable telling millions of suffering that we are abandoning them? Are we really going to abandon another generation to misery? So we, as the members of the opposition side, we stand strongly opposed to the motion and ask the members of this house to reject the proposition. So I will answer some of their argument. So the first one, they say that foreign aid should stop because the government, because of relying on tax. But as in Crossex, my partner asked, some bad regimes does not have like enough revenues to cover all these taxes anyway. So which means that this aid is important to these countries still. And also their second argument, they said that if we do not stop this aid, some of the behaviors from the readers will not change. But as I said in my speech, we cannot punish citizens for the mistake that their readers have made. Let's say if I was born like after all the bad things have happened, how are you going to make me like suffer or stop all the aid because like the government that was like before I was even born made some mistakes? So you cannot punish the children because the sins that were made by their parents. And yeah, I will stop here and we take cross-ex.
Thank you so much, Andy. I have the cross-ex for 2 minutes.
Shall we? Okay. One of the reasons why you actually put the table, we talked about ethical, where we talk also about dignity, and then also give out the example of Afghanistan. So I wanted to ask, Afghanistan is being one of the top 10 countries that receive. You hear me, right? Good.
Okay. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Okay, so you talked about ethical, and then with ethical, you talked about dignity, and then you brought out Afghanistan. And my question is, Afghanistan is among the top 10 countries that receive aid from US. And unfortunately, what happened was that actually they're using actually things like girls are not going back to school ever since things changed there. And then now my question is, where is the dignity whereby now the girls are no longer actually allowed to go to school, whereby there is an awful killing and forcement separates and violence of war that's still happening there? How did that actually keep on bringing dignity? And then how are you guys still even believe that you can even bring again back the things of being dignity and ethical? Thank you.
Yes. So here what I can say is that we cannot like stop all the aid to the Afghanistan because like of some bad things that the government is doing, because like there are also some people who are not like doing all like who are just suffering because like all the decision that we are making because the government is doing bad things. So our argument here is that we should not punish the citizens because of the mistakes or the bad thing the leaders are making. And also here for the I think that's all I can say there.
Thank you, Andy and Christian. Now we're gonna have the second speaker from the proposition side.
Okay, thank you, Adele. How many minutes do I have so far? Like how many minutes do I have?
6 minutes.
It's 8.
6.
6. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're talking about that this was believed that foreign aid should contain on human rights. What we're talking about is that we should give foreign aid actually based on the human rights of the countries that are receiving them. We said that foreign aid we're giving out, it's from a country to country, not from a country to NGOs. And then again, we talked about it's not all the foreign aids that we're going to cut off. We're going to cut off these aids that deals with the physical and military. What we're basically trying to say, louder, like can you hear me? Good. Okay, so what we're basically trying to say, we're not removing every kind of aid, such as the aid that goes for trainings, as you guys will be saying, no. Those are not the aids we're trying to remove. We're trying to put these tricks to the aids such as physical and then military, and this that comes with development. Why? Because these are the aids that actually most of the readers tend to take money from. And then again, we talked about the revenue. What you're trying to the point you're trying to make there is that when a country is receiving, let's say 90% aid, and then the rest of the 10% remaining is from within the country. That basically means that the citizens within the country, they have limited power to the government, right? Because the amount of money they even pay doesn't contribute a lot to the development, which basically means that the leaders are not entitled a lot to work towards them, which basically means if they see them corrupting, they'll be like, that's not a lot of our money. Why? Because they know that most of the money doesn't come from within, but it comes from outside, which basically means they won't pay a lot of attention. That's the point we try to make from that. And then when you say that this will change the behaviors, I don't know how maybe in the Western world happens. In Africa, if you made a mistake, you press the polite to sometimes the stick or something else. So look this in the bigger picture. If you be given 90% of the aid that comes from outside, and then they're telling you, please now let all the girls go to school. Let the media have the freedom to speak whatever that is happening in the country that may be good or not. Let them criticize you. And then if you do that, what will happen in return, you still get the same amount of money they used to get. That's what is happening there is that like all this aid, what happens is there is an exchange. It doesn't come for free. So if they're saying, you do this, we do this to you, that will make a sense. So they're telling you, please, you can do whatever you guys want, but we can also still give you the amount of money that you guys need for the development. But please, what we only want from you is that only you have to do what? You have to respect human rights and each and everything. And then my question is, how is that? You're saying the kids are being the victims. That basically means the citizens are being the victims. But the citizens are not being the victims, but are going to be actually at the end of the day going to benefit from this. Why? Because if the government is being corrupt and then the media are given power to talk about this, that means at the end of the day, they will collect themselves, which basically means the amount of money they used to take aside, we actually come and then benefit the whole country in general. So which basically means our point of revenue still stands and the point of behavior still stands. And then when it comes to another argument why we believe that this should be done is because this amount of money, most of the days when they come around, they tend also to go in terms of corruption. They tend to have the readers do corruptions and take this amount of money. For example, when it comes to countries such as Kenya, let's say for example, countries such as Kenya, what happened is you find that in 2021, according to Transparency International, Kenya is ranked ranked on 18th out of 180 countries within corruption, and the third out of 100 Kenyans says that they would like to do corruption, and they will do that because they've seen the leaders do so. For instance, what happens? Kenyatta family, one of the families in Kenya that has been ruling for a while, they have 22 million euros, where actually some of the properties they have are outside of the countries, and then imagine such as African readers with such an amount of money, and then what have they been doing? It's only being the president for the country. So you see that most of the money that comes, there also goes away. So which is also another one of the problems why we believe this should be done. So everyone, please, as you attended today's debate, we proposition are trying to create a world whereby the aid will be there. Please, you're not trying to remove any aid. No, the aid will be there, and the aid will still continue to work as it used to do. But we're trying to say, we're trying to tell the people, please, you have these aids, A, B, C, D, but this kind of aids, you should put some restrict to them so that you can do what you can respect human rights, because these countries need money for them to develop. These countries again need money for the government to function and anything else. But they get the money, but there is not a lot of restrictions, which basically means they use the money the way they want to. At the end of the day, it comes as negative impact to the citizens. this one amount of them, like it does basically what it's saying to, but not 100% what it's saying to. But we believe as a proposition, if we create this world whereby the aid is still there, but what it only takes is a country to actually make the move and be like, we respect human rights, A, B, C, D, as we say. If you do so, you still get the money. We believe by then we should have this better world whereby human rights is being respected and whereby also the aid is still being given. But it's being given to the country that is able to sustain it, but also sustain the human rights. Thank you, everyone. If any questions, please, I would love to receive them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian. So can we have the cross X for 2 minutes now?
Okay, yes. So my first question for the taxes, you talked about like if the government like become like corrupt, the people we just say that they are not their money and everything. But do you believe that like for example for these bad regimes, like country which are like already poor because of maybe their past and all the records, do you think that the people we like have like even like enough money to just say that the government are not using our money? Like, do you think we have like the revenues like to support the government if we stop the aid, like to pay all the taxes you're talking about?
Okay. So he's what happened. If I heard your question, where you're asking whether these countries that have dictators and no, can you please come back again? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm saying that you say that we should stop the aid just for the citizen to hold accountable government, just in case. Let's say if we give them the aid and they become corrupt, the people are just not to say anything because they will say just it's not our money that they are using. So do you think that if we stop the aid, for these bad regimes or which have like the bad past records, do you think that people are going to like, do they even have like enough revenues to pay all these taxes you're talking about?
Okay, so this what happens basically when it comes to taxes. Every person do pay tax. I hope all of you know that, right? So, and I think some of the people in Africa will live on $2 per day. So, what happened is that whether we're buying things, we're paying taxes, and every kind of things we're doing, we're paying taxes. So, what will happen is if you actually cut, if you say that you're not going to give out the aid because this kind of countries are not respecting human rights, what will happen is those countries, because at the end of the day, the countries in Africa are really poor, and I know you guys know that. So what will happen is also, even if they do pay taxes, at the end of the day, the amount of money won't be equivalent to the amount of money they used to receive from the funds, from the aids. So what basically will happen at the end of the day, they are dictators. Those people we're talking about, or even maybe they're raiders, even if they're not dictators, they will do whatever that is possible to combine actually to go with what actually being requested for them to do, so that we have the amount of money back again. So again, what will end up happening is if there is the aid stopped and then the government also still need money, and then they know basically the citizens can give the equivalent still amount of money, they actually chill and then be able to go with human rights and respecting them. If I heard you, please, that was okay. Good. If not, please, any other question, it's okay.
No other question.
Okay, thank you, Andy and Christian.
Thank you.
We're gonna have the second speaker from the opposition side.
Can everybody hear me okay? Wonderful. I would again like to thank the proposition for their arguments. In this speech, I will once again urge you to oppose today's motion, focusing on the practical impacts of such a motion and the real-world effects of its widespread adoption. I will then further answer the substantive arguments in the proposition's case and explain how many of their arguments do not hold up under close scrutiny. Finally, in her rebuttal, Andy will crystallize for you the main reasons you are opposing today. First, let's discuss the practical reasons we give you to oppose the motion. Andy tells you in our first speech that foreign aid is a critical aspect of the liberal international order and is necessary to uphold conditions of democracy and global interdependence. Even if such aid is not perfect, it is a crucial tool to socialize other nations and make them more amenable to democratic influence. We give many examples of this. The first comes from the end of the Second World War with the United States pursuance of the Marshall Plan. We say that this plan used foreign aid to not only reconstruct parts of Europe destroyed by the war and helping the citizens in those countries, but it also helped create a cohesive alliance between the United States and Western European countries to counter the dangers of Russian authoritarianism. In fact, Hal Brands, distinguished professor of global affairs at Johns Hopkins University, argues that this aid was a stepping stone to the creation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, as well as economic institutions that continue to create prosperity and stability today. Foreign aid is a crucial tool in creating these institutions. Our second example is a little more recent and focuses on a 2006 research paper written by Brian Lai and Daniel Morey, professors of political science from the universities of Iowa and Kentucky. In their analysis of voting records in the United Nations, they find that non-democratic regimes are significantly more likely to vote with their democratic peers when they are receiving foreign aid than when they are not. They conclude that even if foreign aid does not always reach the intended target, the people, it still results in net positives for the world in the form of more effective governance regimes being implemented from the top down. This is necessary to create global collaboration on the many issues facing the world in the 21st century, like climate change, technology development, and trade and resource disputes. Thus, it is clear that the motion that's proposed today would surely inhibit such institutions in both their creation and their effectiveness and must be rejected. Now to answer my opponent's arguments from their last speech. First, they make the argument that we should not talk about humanitarian aid in this debate. We think this is a ridiculous standard to set for two main reasons. First, we think that humanitarian aid is essential to the question of whether or not foreign aid is good, because at the end of the day, that is the goal that governments have when they are pursuing aid. The second argument that we're going to make on this is that even if they're correct that we should ignore humanitarian aid, we think that those other forms of aid that are isolated, i.e. fiscal aid and military aid, are still necessary to help socialize these nations to work for the democratic system and to work with countries like the United States that are trying to make a better world. Next, my opponents talk about their taxation argument, that citizens have limited power, and that by giving foreign aid, it decreases the incentives for the government to try to fix their own problems. We think that this is an argument that should be rejected, because how are citizens that are living in these repressive regimes able to make money to pay taxes if their human rights are being violated? We think that foreign aid is a necessary precondition to helping these governments come back from what they're trying, to improve their living situation. The next argument they make is that withholding aid would change the way that governments work. However, we say that history shows that this is not the case, and that shunning nations with human rights violation is actually more detrimental. And we give you two instances. The first example we tell you to look to is Iraq shortly after the Gulf War. The UN Security Council embargoed foreign aid to Iraq because of its human rights violations, but material living conditions of the people living in Iraq only got worse. In 1995, the United Nations reported that the sanctions and shunnings imposed on Iraq were directly responsible for the deaths and malnutritions of thousands of children in the country. The truth is, some regimes will not change, and it is the responsibility of those nations that do care to help those in need, regardless of what country they happen to live in. The second example we give you is more recent, and we tell you to look at North Korea and the imposition of global shunning on them as a prime example of how good intentions can have negative consequences. While being shunned by democratic nations around the world due to human rights issues, the government of North Korea went to the only actor that would support them, an authoritarian China. This relationship enabled them to continue to pursue dangerous nuclear tests, continued violation of human rights, and overall less stability for the world, a scenario that would only become more common in the world that the government proposes that we ought to live in. The next argument they make is that if the government is corrupt, then the foreign aid won't work because it doesn't go to the people. However, we give you a few major arguments. First, we must not let perfect be the enemy of the good. Even if not every dollar that's given helps people living in the countries directly, we emphatically argue that helping some people is better than helping no people, as the proposition would have you believe. The second argument we'll make is that empirical examples prove that it works in the long term. Look to Colombia, who under an authoritarian regime received United States aid, and though it didn't go to the people initially, the influence that came with it resulted in long-term benefits for the people of Colombia, and aid continues to help them to this day. The next argument that the proposition makes is about Kenya and their corruption, but we're going to make two arguments to this. First, we are seeing right now Biden using military aid to influence the leadership of Kenya to stop doing things like offshoring financial accounts, trying to create better instances of their operations without actually withholding that aid, but instead using their influence. But secondly, we think that the people in Kenya should not be punished just for the things that their government institutions are doing, which is why the United States and other democratic nations need to keep helping those people, even if their government will not help them. The last argument they make is that the countries need money, and so they will change their minds. However, we tell you that only by continuing foreign aid will we be able to determine which countries influence and who gives that money. Otherwise, you have fill-in by authoritarian regimes like Russia and China who don't think that human rights are as necessary, which just proliferates the problems in those nations. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Let's have the cross-ex for 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I had a problem on my end for a second.
Okay. So your first point was interdependence. And we as the affirmative, we've showed you that more aid has led to more violence. That being said, Afghanistan is one of the countries that has been given more aid, yet there is more violence. Why? Because the government does not feel the need to listen to the people. So what you're actually saying is that if you are saying that more aid should be given because of this interdependence, it means that you are ready to interact with countries that are actually killers that oppress their citizen instead of just helping them to, instead of just helping them.
Sure. So on the opposition, we have made the argument, and we think that it is fundamentally true, that even if countries like Afghanistan are bad in the short term, it is net better for democratic institutions that care about human rights to have that influence over Afghanistan so that they don't turn to a nation like Russia or China that has worse ideas of what human rights ought to be and doesn't push them to correct. We would say that modern day Afghanistan mirrors Colombia in the 1980s and the 1990s.
Thank you.
Can I as well?
Of course.
Okay. So you talked about this will not change the case, and you say some will, but not allow will. So my question is, if even for the fact you understand that some will, that means you understand there's a problem, and then don't you think even that some you're talking about worth saving? Another question is, you say this will not change the case, and here's a proof that this will change the case. We all remember back in the days when Trump come up with this ridiculous decisions of resigning the person that now is currently in charge of World Health Organization. What basically happens is most of the countries that receive aids from US, they tend to sign that petition by saying that it should be resigned. But some of the countries that not. Do you think they've done that because they want to, or they've done that because they know there's something they get from US? So my question, what I'm trying to make here, make more sense is that no matter what happens, as long as we still depend on these aids, whatever they're saying they're going to do so, which basically means if they have the word to say stop doing this, and we shall. Another question is, what do you base on by actually saying this country does better in terms of human rights, and this one does worse? Because you guys are talking about Russia and China being the bad part, but who's the best now? Because you also know actually US being also among the best in terms of racist and everything else. So how are you going to say this is best and this is worst? Please go ahead with that.
Our argument is simply that certain nations have better commitments to human rights in the past and have better track records at influencing those human rights decisions. And we think that the current nations giving foreign aid are doing that better than those that might fill in a world where we side with the proposition proposal.
So that means you're saying that those that are currently given aids, they're doing better. That means you're saying that Afghanistan, there is currently being receiving one of the best aid, which is 4.9 billion from US, and at the end of the day, it has cases of awful killing, enforcement, disappearance, and violence is doing better. Is that what you guys are saying?
We argue that if we totally cut off our aid, then Afghanistan will just go to another nation and become the new North Korea, which we think is net worse than what is happening now, especially when we have argued that, like, empirically, the United States is able to resolve those issues in the long term.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Now we're gonna have the reply speech for 3 minutes, and we're gonna start with the proposition side.
Proposition.
Okay. Can I go with that? Oh, okay. So we said proposition. We are here to debate this world we want to create, whereby we should give foreign aids depending on the human rights records of a central country. The country that do not respect the human rights should not receive a central foreign aid because that, so they should do better for them to receive this. Dear Judge, we have tools that basically we're creating here. We have opposition world whereby foreign aid is being given, as the start speaker Nicholas said, and then as he stated, as reported as him saying that the countries that are so far being given this aid are the best countries so far, which basically means Afghanistan that is receiving $4 billion from US as aid is doing so far by doing all those things you have said, which is disappearing, killing people, girls are not going back to school, and any of those stuff that are already there, which also basically means Kenya is doing best with those corruption cases they have, and those people that are actually feeling that it's okay to do that. Whereby they actually say they're doing okay, and that's so far so good. So they're trying to say, rather than making Kenya North Korea, so they could more worse, let them keep it do whatever bad things they're doing right now so far, and then we pay them so they could not go extra miles. Dear judges, we as proposition, the word that you're creating is telling the Kenyan people and the Afghanistan people that you can't have this amount of money unless you beat A, B, C, D. In case the word extra miles try to become like Russia, North Korea, and whatever countries that are doing whatever they're doing, we shall cut them off by having add more punishments aside. But actually, let's give them the money because you know that it holds a lot of things they really want to. We believe by that they will change their minds because we have so far the statistics that have been working out whereby Trump himself has forced more African nations to try to resign the person that is so far in charge of WHO, and most of them they fall for that and actually right for that. At the end of the day, it didn't work out, but they have made the step of going to do that, which basically means if we depend on them with 90% or 98% of the GDP of the amount of money that we use in our country, which basically means whatever they say, they made a big impact to us. So we believe that they should say human rights first, the money comes next, and we believe that will work out. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christian. So can we have the opposition? 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, thank you, Christian, for your reply speech. So we are first to start, it is very clear that from the argument that we provided, you should vote to oppose today's motion on both ethical and practical level. In his last speech, Nick, my partner, he gives you the example of Marshall Plan and United Nations voting records to explain that foreign aid is necessary tools for democratic states to influence the behavior of others. So such influence is important, regardless of whether or not foreign aid make it to the people it aims to help. Furthermore, he shows you that proportioning the proposition encourages is counterproductive in benefiting the lives of people in these countries. Also, in our speech, we showed you how ethical it is to treat people with dignity, and that's what builds and makes democracy work. In addition, we showed you that foreign aid is more than just money by giving you the examples of the Western states which provide military governing expertise and training and grants and all the goods. So to answer some of my proposition argument, they insisted on the example of the Afghanistan, that if we continue to give the aid, it will not stop all the bad behaviors and bad things that they are doing. But it is if let's say we cut the aid we give to Afghanistan and then they go to Russia, things are going to be much worse than they are today. So it's not we will not be solving anything anyway. So, and also like we believe that we should not cut all the aid, because like even if they do all the bad things you mentioned, there are some goods that this aid still do. Like we gave you the example, like they feed some children, they buy some medicine, and these are as we said, these are worth also saving and go for. So we think that we should oppose the motion today because of the three main reasons I'm going to tell you. The first one, you should not punish the child for the sins of their parents. You cannot stop all the aid to the people because of all the mistake the government are doing. And the truth is, some will never change. So there is no way like the people are going to suffer because of these bad leaders. And the second one, do not make the perfect the enemy of the good. So even if every dollar doesn't go to the people in need, some of them does, and we should not hold this because of that. And our last reason is that the long-term benefit of this foreign aid outweigh all the short-term problems and all the negative aspect the proposition that said. And that's why we must oppose the motion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. So now we're gonna have the floor open to the audience. And if Justin, you want to take us through the questions from the YouTube channel, you could.
Sure. We have a couple of questions from YouTube right off the bat. One question for all the debaters is, what historical or contemporary examples of foreign aid did the teams find to be the most interesting while conducting your research?
We can have anyone from the team's answer.
Sure. Sorry, Justin. We were having some technical switch off issues. So we heard the end and the beginning of your question, but the middle part of like what we were actually answering, we didn't get.
Sure. What historical or contemporary examples of foreign aid did you find interesting while conducting your research?
Sure. So I guess I did some of the research for Team Opposition, and I thought it was really interesting to look to Iraq after the Gulf War. I thought the like literature about that was really interesting. And it kind of changed my preconceptions of foreign aid a little bit to understand the ways that it like interacted in that specific historical example.
Thank you. The research I did was about Mobutu. He was a president in Congo, and I literally thought that I didn't know that he was corrupt just because like he was getting free money, and as well as his government. I just thought it was just bad governance and all. But then the fact that they were sending in a lot of foreign aid caused the government in power, the Mobutu government, to actually withhold the money. And with that said, he was able to stay in power for a long time, oppressing the people and without any actually good governance. So I really, it was like a newfound.
Okay, can I also answer to that? Can I? Okay. So also there is this study that I come across, but I'm sorry, can't remember it. That's why I actually bring it into the whole debate. What basically happens was that I said professors come in Africa, and then they show the citizens two different articles, and one of the article was showing them how the government used their taxes as they corrupt within the taxes, and another one was an article that actually showed them how which actually showed them how again the government used the aids and corrupt from the aid. So what happened was that the citizens who actually saw those two different articles, they have different reactions. The ones with article who have seen the article that shows how they corrupt from their taxes, they're the one who actually tried a lot of and big concerns about it, and the one who actually saw the other one actually which shows how they corrupt from the aid, with the one were like, we don't care, that's not our money, we don't know where it came from, we don't know how they even get that. But the ones were like, I worked for this, I worked for the money to even to pay this tax. At the end of the day, this is what people are doing. The one who actually showed the consent. So this actually cleansed my mind with the fact that the fact that what we tend to work for, that's what you actually tend even to put more efforts and minds to, which actually gives these readers some of the day's reasons to why they actually tend to take the money from the aid, actually apart from taking the lot of money from the tax people they do really pay. Thank you.
So we do have another question from the YouTube chat, and it's from Colton White, who's a local high school debate coach here in Lincoln. He coaches at a high school here, and he wants to know, what are the biggest differences between this format of debate and the formats that you normally compete in, or the formats that you're normally used to?
Can I start with my side? Okay, so one of the differences that we have seen is that, which is actually why we actually stopped a little bit, we paused a little bit when it comes to give a reply speech. We actually normally use the opposition. They're the one who comes actually with the reply speech in the first, like they're the first one to come with the reply speech. Prop starts the whole debate, and then the op ends with coming first when it comes to reply speech. And then within reply speech, you have this kind of rules that we use. I don't know if it's the same there, that you don't have to bring anything that is in your reply speech, and you don't have to answer questions that were still hanged in the reply speech, which actually most of the debaters at the end of the day, you're like, okay, so I forget this, and you find yourself doing that, although you know you don't have to. But yeah, this was one of the things. And then for us here, we used to go with 5-minute speaker, like use 5 minutes, and that means the next speaker to use actually like 4. So the first speaker, because there's a lot of things to say, they use 5, and the rest they use 4. And then you don't have actually cross examination, but you actually have reply speech. What happens is, like in the middle of my speech, you can actually interrupt and be like, I need to ask this, and then you go with that, and then the debate goes on.
Sure, and I can talk a little bit about what we do at the University of Nebraska, if that's okay with you, Andy. So I guess the biggest difference, or there are really 2 big differences between this format of debate that we're doing here and what we usually do. The first is that we're on a team. We're actually partners for this debate. So we usually compete in forms of solo debate. And so that was kind of interesting and fun to get to work with Andy to like, here's how we debate with a partner and kind of trade off responsibilities with that. The second big thing that I think is a little different about this format than our other format is that this format is much more outward facing. It's for an audience that is meant to persuade them. Whereas the kind of debate we sometimes do is more about for debaters to see the debate. So I think it's really interesting that we're able to like engage in this form of argumentation that persuades a larger audience, I guess.
Okay. We have another question from the YouTube channel. This comes from Salman Jinganabai, who is one of the debaters here at the University of Nebraska. And Salman would like to know from the opposition, how does your position resolve corruption or violence long term? And wants to know exactly how you solve for oppression and other forms of violence in the long term.
Yes. So thank you for the question, Salman. So one of the arguments that we made is like by giving the foreign aid, there is some political and cultural influence that the country that is giving aid imposed to the country that is receiving the aid. So that may solve the corruption in the long term. By just like, let's say if we give the aid and we give like, so you do have to like by imposing or influencing the behaviors of the readers so that we cannot stop all the aid. So that may change the corruption in the long term. And Nick can add some.
I think Andy mostly covered it. We specifically give you the example of United Nations voting records. The research that I found said that when we give aid, or when democratic nations give aid to non-democratic nations, they're more likely to influence the way they vote in international institutions to like resolve bigger global problems related to that oppression and that corruption too.
Any other questions from the YouTube channel or from the Zoom chat?
I actually have a question. So from what I heard from Nick, do you guys usually have debates alone, like a solo debate the whole time?
Yeah, so usually we do individual debates. So we debate one topic the entire year, and it's just one person against a person from another university and a judge in the back of the room, and it's just the three of us kind of hashing it out every round, and we do that multiple times a day to for a tournament.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to add a little bit about the debate we do here. So the speed also is different. So when I was like practicing this debate, it was kind of challenging because when I started the debate, the only format I was used to is like to read 18 pages like in 6 minutes. So it was kind of challenging to read 2 pages in 6 minutes because I was like, this is supposed to be like a conversational debate. So like it was to try to speak not very fast. It was a little bit challenging.
that's quite impressive. If you can read 18 pages in 6 minutes, we're impressed. Well, Justin, if you don't have anything else to add on, I think we could get done with the debate.
Yeah, I just want to thank y'all so much for participating, for giving us the opportunity to engage in this discussion. I know that we've wanted to do this for a while, and because of the pandemic, things kind of got thrown up in the air. And so I just want to let y'all know, and I want to let everybody watching know that as soon as we're able, we want to bring you to campus and have y'all come hang out in Lincoln with us for a while, because I think it would be really awesome to host y'all here for a while and show you the sights and sounds of Nebraska as Midwestern as it can be. So thanks a lot for engaging in the debate, and we hope to do it again.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad we had this debate. I was so excited to actually start have the first debate with the University of Nebraska. And thank you for everyone that made it. Thank you for your team and my team. Thank you so much. And I hope the next time we have a debate is in person. I really hope this is gonna work. This Corona is gonna help us or give us a time to actually meet in person. And this was really good. And I was actually happy to see one of your team members is part of our country, Rwanda. Yay. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. And I really hope next time we're together. Yeah. So anything my team wants to add, you're free to say bye or add something.
All that we can say is that it was a pleasure, first of all. We also hope that you guys learn a lot from us, and anytime please, we shall give you more of good debates, and then we shall actually take it around the country. It will be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And don't forget to check our website and our socials and leave a review of the funds for our company. Thank you. Bye.
Yep,
Have a good day.